Aunt Nell.
I'm Tash Walker, a queer, gender-fluid writer, audio producer, and one of the founders of Aunt Nell. Aunt Nell is a production company that works across time to honour voices that are excluded from history and shape stories that reimagine the future. This is the sound of trans freedom. It was September 2021, and an email popped into my inbox from a Stephen Whittle. I did a bit of a double take because I had read so much about this person.
I have been supporting and working with the trans community from 1974. I was very involved in Press for Change and the various cases that brought about the Gender Recognition Act in 2004 and our inclusion in the Equality Act 2010. I have been researching our history as a sideline to my legal work for 30 years now. I wonder if we could work towards getting some of these stories told. Stephen Whittle.
I was intrigued. What were these stories? As an audio producer, how might I tell them? Stephen was one of the people who had founded Press for Change on the 27th of February 1992. It was a UK-based campaign group focusing on the rights and treatment of trans people. Their stated aim was seeking respect and equality for all trans people in the UK. Press for Change led the campaign for full legal recognition for transgender people living in Britain, including the right to marry, to be entitled to privacy about medical history, and a right to equality. Press for Change's archive now resides at the Hall Carpenter Archive at LSE, and it includes a number of letters from trans people and others looking for help and support. The stack of letters is a community of sorts, and it reminded me of the poet Joelle Taylor and what she had said. Collectivity is the antidote to cultural fascism. And she's right. It's collectivity, it's community, it's our ability to imagine and dream as trans and gender non-conforming people. This is how I decided to tell the letters' stories. I asked 4 trans sound artists to spend time with the letters and Press for Change's archive and craft a response to what they found there. What came back included music, creative documentary features, and a series of new letters from trans people that mirror many of the letters from the archive. We were all living in a powerfully transphobic atmosphere, and in fact, as the artists began responding to the letters, a Supreme Court ruling set trans rights back decades. The old letters felt so alive. It was as if they had been written today, not in the 90s. But we are still a community, a trans community whose voices, creativity and imagination will not be censored, like many of those we found in the archive.
January 1996. I recently received information about the Press for Change organisation and about a bill that is to be brought before Parliament, intended to give all transsexual people legal recognition in their new gender roles. Well, I am a person of no sex or gender. If this bill is passed, how would it help, if at all? Would this bill enable me to get my birth certificate and other legal documents changed? Or is it just for males and females? If the bill is passed, and I could have documents changed, would I only be able to do so if I were to have medical or surgical treatment to provide some kind of medical evidence?
That was made by Naafi, one of the sound artists, after reading and reflecting on the letters.
24th of April, 1999. I have gender dysphoria and have been waiting for almost 2 years for funding from my local health authority. I realise that these things take time, but I was not aware at first that some authorities refuse to pay for this kind of treatment. My doctor referred me in June 97, and he agreed to refer me to Charing Cross Hospital. I waited until June to the mental health unit, and so I was back where I started. They keep telling me to wait, but it's not that easy. Could you please tell me if there is anyone I could contact who may be able to give me any information? I realise that I am going to have to wait, but I just want to know that the authority will grant such an application and that I am not waiting for nothing. I want to get on with my life, but I have hit a brick wall and I need help to get over it. I hope that you can help me in some way.
When I first started reading the letters, I think I anticipated, I don't know what I anticipated. I was excited and curious to read them. My name's Kamari Romeo, and my pronouns are he, him, and I am one of the selected commissioned artists for this project. As I got to the end of them, I realised I felt a little bit sad because I just felt like actually nothing much has changed. A lot of the things I read within the letters are still echoed today, so I felt a moment of sadness, but I wanted to find a way to kind of not necessarily feed into another negative narrative on trans people or trans lives, but find maybe some way to kind of subvert the narrative or give it some sort of power. I think my approach to creating art and conversations has shifted over the years, and I think I'm now at a place for people to take and interpret what is most useful, valuable within that work, and find something within it that's more meaningful to them.
It's often said that everyone has a naughty nurse fantasy at some point in their life. We feel vulnerable in that waiting room, nervous. Then along comes a caregiver. Maybe they're stern and cold. Maybe they're warm and comforting. What's not to love? While the image of a beautiful female nurse, clothed in a tight white dress and snapping the cuff of a pair of latex gloves, is burned into the public consciousness as a sex symbol, the reality of medical care is far removed from the mass-produced, fancy dress costume labelled sexy nurse. I will be performing your medical examination today. This will be part of the appeal process for renewing your HRT prescription. I'm just going to get a few details from you first. That's your birth name, isn't it? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Good. I will have to use it for the remainder of the exam. This is just in accordance with the amended Identity Act. I will also need to verify your sex marker on your birth certificate. That's the letter M, correct? Lovely. Right. I'm going to ask you to strip down and put your clothes in the area we've designated. Yes, socks as well. Everything off. My assistant is just here to take notes, all right? Open your mouth. Most people are scared of going to the doctors, but for many transgender people that want to medically transition, the idea of having needles stuck into our skin and being cut open on a sterile surgical table represents hope. My medical fantasy is a world in which my access to healthcare is a protected human right.
24th of February 1996. Dear Sirs, I am a 27-year-old male to female transsexual. However, I am neither of them. My discharge recommendation stated that I was medically unfit for further service. I can't see that because of my being transsexual, I would be unfit to carry out my normal duties. I have in the past approached a solicitor who said that HM forces are a funny animal. I would have to go to the European Court of Human Rights just to begin any unfair dismissal claims. That would cost me a lot of money. As I was, and still am, without employment, I could not afford to pay. I still, because of my medical discharge, am finding it hard to obtain employment. In addition, I do believe that there is also some discrimination towards me due to my gender and aspirations. I hope you may be able to advise me of my rights, if any, in this matter, as I am at the end of my tether.
I'm Tom Sayers, my pronouns are she, her, or they, them, and I reflected on the letters about employment.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Angeroni.
I'm Gordine McKenzie.
And this is Gender Talk.
I do my job. I love my job. I love getting up in the morning and going to work, and I'm sure that if we took a poll, there wouldn't be too many people who could say that.
Yeah.
But the fact is that that's my purpose. I had to take care of myself in my life. I had to do this. When I told the superintendent it's life and death, it was that. It's very simple. I attempted suicide, several years ago, twice. I said to him, if I cannot make this change, I said, then I will no longer be living. I said, instead of spending the money on the surgery, we'll be spending money on a funeral. And it wasn't dramatics. It wasn't anything else but the truth, because I had it. I could not live with myself anymore.
Nobody asked to work for a life of labouring to cover the cost of life on Earth. Why then is it so difficult for trans people to just participate in work? It's so unpredictable. It's 1 minute, you're not a faggot, are you? And then the next, it's...
The important thing for me is that you feel empowered to request and ask for and create whatever it is you need to feel like you can do your job to the best of your ability. That's my job, right, as a manager, to do that for everybody. So long as you feel empowered enough to do that and in a safe enough space, in any capacity, in any regard whatsoever, you know that door is open and I will do what I can to facilitate. I'm not a mind reader and I don't want to presume. I think that's the worst part. In my view, that creates a barrier to entry.
Do you value me as a worker? Do you value me as an artist instead of someone who's just there to check a box off?
It took me about 18 months in the job before I kind of got the courage to tell people. It was actually the trust that I worked for put out a comms for, I think, International Non-Binary People's Day. And they put out this little email to everyone in the trust and a little paragraph about, like, what does non-binary mean, blah, blah, blah. And I think I saw that email and I just thought, like, right, well, I better, like, piggyback on this. So I asked my line manager to share it around. And then no one kind of spoke to me or emailed me or anything about it. But then people started using they to refer to me in emails and stuff and in meetings, and I just felt so, like, relieved about that, and just so, like, glad that people were actually doing something about it. Because I think, to be honest, one of the things that put me off coming out at work for so long was the fear that people would just continue to call me she and her which would just feel so much worse because whenever that happens, it just feels like someone's just doesn't care at all about you.
When I first started playing with the idea of medically transitioning, I remember being so foolish and naive to revealing aspects about my trans identity to my employers. And looking back, the advice that was given to me oftentimes was really upsetting about how I need to embrace being masculine and how I shouldn't strive for femininity because I am naturally a masculine person. One of my employers essentially told me that because I am a gay man, I can get farther in the fashion industry despite saying multiple times that I didn't identify as a gay man. Sometimes in the environments I'm placed, I don't feel as though the people around me believe it when I say that I am a trans woman. I know for a fact some people in the back of their heads are just saying she, her as a form of respect. I'm not going to say respect, I'm going to say obligation.
How can you demand respect when someone's denying your very existence? What do you do when you want to work but no one's giving you a chance?
I can't afford to ask for people to respect me more or to draw attention to microaggressions in like spaces like that because I am someone who needs to pay rent. I found myself really ignoring disrespect that I was facing.
Being at work is to be out of place, away from safety, somewhere we can't just be.
Second day I went in, was asked to go into the office with the director, and she told me that someone told them that I was not a biological man, that I was in transition to be a man, and that I was fired. She went on hearsay. She didn't even ask me anything about it. She just said that someone told them. And then she asked me about it after the fact, and I told her I'm a man. My documents prove that I'm a man. My driver's license, my birth certificate, Social Security. Well, I've always been a man from little bitty boy. Growing up, I always felt like a man as long as I've been in existence.
Many of us, like myself, are just everyday working people who have come to a place in their lives where the incongruities of living life as one sex, while everything else inside is screaming the opposite, can simply no longer be tolerated or accepted. The existing official system then forces us to find ways around it and to announce ourselves to the world in our own way, in spite of the roadblocks placed in our path by a system that is supposedly there to help us. No matter who says so, I know I am female, and I am not going away.
I was aware of my own personal voice as a trans man and a trans masculine person. I didn't know what the content would be in terms of the letters that I shared. So my approach was, I was reading the letters in the archive. After you read it, you're kind of left with lots of questions about were they ever responded to? Did they get the treatment? Are they still alive? Where are they now? What's happened to them? I thought a way to connect the past to the present is to give trans people the opportunity to speak back to the services in the here and now. The brief that I gave to the people that I asked within my network was, don't censor yourself. If you want to swear, if you want to cry, if you want to, write a romantic letter, like think about some of the experiences on your journey. And if you had the opportunity to either go back or even now to say something that would make a difference, what would you say?
Why am I bothering with asking you for help again? It's probably every third line in my fucking medical history. When I first told you I didn't want a womb, I told you that I also didn't want to be alive. And neither were taken seriously. I want to live now. I've worked really hard on myself. I've paid for the psychiatrist. I paid for my medication. It's been years and I found labels which bring me peace, people and love. And I still don't want a womb. I still feel like I could be the dad. I want it gone. I'm genderless. You tell me I have really big thighs for a female. That's why I get pain in my legs. I'm very muscular for a female. I've probably got a lot of testosterone for a female. Excluding the tea that I did take in secret for a while. I wish I could have spoken to you about it, but I can't. You rip away my non-binary identity repeatedly to treat me as a black woman because it is convenient. You can tell me that I'm really, really strong and you can leave me as another note in the system. I was hospitalised 3 times before I received mental health support. I've been saying I don't want a womb for even longer. Things are so different now, and I'm so successful, I guess. I forget. I look at the mirror and I feel a peace with my body. I feel happiness that I haven't felt ever. And then every month I am reminded I am still dysphoric. Every month I am at mercy. And every month I am reminded that I still want a fucking hysterectomy. Or maybe we could just have a conversation. But again, I receive a request to do a mental health form.
I wish trans healthcare was treated as seriously as any other medical condition. Although, to be honest, there are many conditions not treated with the appropriate severity that they need. I wish you talked about it more, taught it in schools as a normal variation of puberty. I wish you treated medical transition with delicacy. That staff didn't scoff at trans patients inquiring about their treatments. That they weren't so quick to make us say and repeat our dead names like it should be nothing. That we were treated with the sensitivity that we deserve. I guess I wish you saw us as deserving of care, of being believed, of being listened to, of being treated as human beings, and not deranged aliens sometimes. Yours truly, Angel.
The narratives around trans lives often happen in isolation, and we forget these are people's daughters, sons, siblings, friends, lovers, teachers. Like, trans people, we participate in society.
I am Jesse Lawson, and I use he and they pronouns. I was reflecting on letters on the theme of family, and something that the letters made me think about was how something that makes you a good parent is really knowing yourself, and that's something that you kind of have to do when you come out as trans, is really think about who you are and what you want and how to communicate that to people. And it was beautiful and inspiring, and at times heartbreaking to read the care and effort and thought put in by the trans parents and parents of trans kids in the letters that I read. Helped me think about how I want to do family making.
One day when you were 2, you were sitting playing with your dolls, and and you realized that they might be hungry, like you often are. You thought, I've got a great idea. And your idea was to go outside, pick some leaves from the plants, and you got a little stone from your little bag of stones, and you crushed the leaves into a bit of a pulp, sort of like applesauce vibes. You spooned the green gunk into your doll's mouths. It felt like you were doing something that was a purpose, and you were good at it, when maybe you were not good at anything else in life. And that's when you knew. You're trying to become a parent. You have for years at this point. But time is a construct in queer land, so it could be 5 years, or it could be 2 months, who knows. You feel ready, unlike maybe before, where maybe you oscillated between ready and apprehensive, mostly because of the state of the world. It's really rare for queer people to conceive by mistake, so people tend to have put time and effort into making that decision. Things you need to become a parent: time, patience, resources, like how to work out when you're ovulating, and how to work out when patience, you see your sperm donor, logistics, and where do they live, and how resources, do you be at the same place at the same patience, time. Capacity. A sperm donor, did I say that? Time, yes, I did. So you put so much time and effort into wanting a child and then having the child, like that when you have the child, you're really there. A want and a will to do it. February 21st, 2004. Dear Sir, I am writing in support of your attitude towards transsexual people. As the mother of a son who has now become a woman, I know just what difference it has made to her and to our family. X's decision to change has drawn us all closer together. We talk more and are more understanding towards each other. X herself is very happy and relaxed and a joy to be with. It was not always like that. You're amazed that this is written in 2004 but could be written right now. You love this mum. Most cis people like this mum. Their instincts are to love and accept you and to respect you as human beings. And it's easy to forget when you're surrounded by this political landscape of anti-trans rhetoric. 7th of January 1997. Dear Sir, Madam, I came across your advert, which was cross-stock issue 31, and I was wondering if I could be sent some information and possibly your support, as I am due in B High Court on the 20th and 21st of February 1998. I'm fighting for my right to have access to my 2 children, H, aged 5, and S, who is 4. When I stand up in court, I am fighting for my rights as a parent and as a transsexual. I have been told I must appear as a man in court and for contact with my children if I am granted access. I refuse blankly 100% to appear as something I am not, and I have fought for 28 years to be the woman I really am. I will be fighting to see my children so I can appear as a female and their loving parent. That's so sad. And also feels like potentially was a reality for lots of trans people and has caused lots of trans people to choose between their parenthood or their transness. Either where they've got children already and the fear of losing them has kept them from coming out, or the other way where coming out has been you've lost the access to be able to do it. And it doesn't make sense because most of the parents you know who are trans are the best parents you know. And you can't imagine how a parent that's not happy in themselves would be a good parent to a child. So it doesn't make sense for the court to try and make this person be someone they're not. You're not sure, but you think that maybe the trans people who've written these letters in the 90s were by themselves and not in community with other trans people, might not have known many other or any other trans people. And that is quite a massive difference to your own life as a trans person now. Having a community of trans people around you, it might not give you more access to healthcare, or it might not give you more access to laws that protect you, but it does give you more access to information and to support and to underground ways of doing things that only you and the people around you might know how to do, or how to work through loopholes that no one else is going to help you do. And you can't imagine being by yourself trying to work that out. Okay. 29th of November 1995. I would be happy to help further the cause via television or whatever if it will help younger transsexuals to get through it quicker. 17th of November 1998. There may be others who come along after me. I'm making a stand for them as much as for me. You're struck by how so many of these trans people were doing things that maybe they don't want to do in order to make the lives of the next generation of trans people better. And you are the next generation of trans person. And you feel thankful because in many ways things have been potentially easier for you and the trans people around you in some ways. But you're also motivated to do the same for the next generation of trans people who potentially don't have to deal with the things that you're dealing with. And in many ways, maybe that is trans culture, where you just want life to be better for younger trans people than it was for you. Things happen incrementally and progress isn't linear, and it goes back and forth, and things might get better again and then worse again in 30 years' time, much like it has now. And maybe you'll write a letter that another trans person will find in 30 years' time and will read it and go, that sounds like now. But hopefully not. Hopefully they read it and go, wow, it's so much better now.
Dear NHS, as the child of a trans woman, I can observe from the world around me that many political figures are cruel and unforgiving to the trans community. The Supreme Court's new judgment on trans rights has proven that transphobia is shared across some of the higher political figures. As a Year 8 student, I can say that some parts of biology are vague, beautiful and changing. My parent has had several medical procedures over the years that have made her feel comfortable in her own skin and brought her into new communities. It has made her so much happier, and I can see its positive effect on her. My parent is a writer, and she has made lots of shows expressing trans joy, and we even did a show together with the moral that you can be whoever you want to be, and things might seem more different on the outside than on the inside. I think that people who are transphobic probably don't have a trans person in their life, or maybe even see things online that might make them feel like it's okay to say horrible, unjustified things to trans people, and slurs that insult trans people are definitely being used more recently. My parents' medical transition hasn't actually impacted me much. I'm just happy to have a happy parent. People sometimes might think that medical decisions like these are rushed or not fully thought out, especially for young trans people, but I've witnessed how long the process can take and how much thinking goes into making that decision. It can take years of thought and consideration. If I could change one thing for trans people, I would make trans people more equal and accepted by cis people. Best regards.
17th of November, 1998. There may be others who come along after me. I'm making a stand for them as much as for me.
Imagine a world that the letter writers should have lived in, that we should have grown up in, that we are still fighting for today. A world that holds us all close in community. A world that will allow all trans and gender non-conforming people to not just survive, but to thrive. The sound of trans freedom is dedicated to the trans and gender non-conforming siblings we have lost. We remember you every day, and we carry you all in our hearts. Thanks to all the contributors who gave their voices, thoughts and feelings to the pieces. The Press for Change archive letters were read throughout the piece by Serena James, recorded by David Pye. The featured artists were Naafi, Kamari Romeo, Tom Sayers, Jesse Lawson. Archival audio courtesy of Gender Talk, a radio show speaking the language of gender created by Nancy Nangaroni, originally broadcast on WMBR Cambridge and Boston, USA. Find them at gendertalk.com. And Out FM, a multiracial, progressive LGBTQ+ public affairs and culture show on WBAI New York, USA. And you can listen to their extensive archive at outfm.org. The Sound of Trans Freedom was compiled and mixed by Ali Adlington, produced by Tash Walker, and the executive producers for Aunt Nell were Tash Walker and Adam Smith. Special thanks to Stephen Whittle, Press for Change, the National Archives, and the Hall Carpenter Archives at LSE.